If I could speak 1,000 languages, if I could tell what's in the future, if I could know all things that can't be known but don't have love. Hi, I'm Greg Barr, and I would like to share something with you that is very personal and very meaningful. I want to do it as genuinely and clearly as I possibly can, so here goes. 40 years ago, my life radically changed for the better, and that was largely due to the Bible. Since then, the Bible has been a foundation for my life, a guide, a comfort, a helper, an encourager, a rebuke, a corrector, an instructor, and so many more things. And I would like to share some of that with you. I also want to say right at the start that I in no way claim a corner on the truth. There are many great Bible teachers around the world, in the country, and around the Cape, but I know there is something here for you. So for the next 30 minutes or so, open up your heart, open up your mind, and see what God may have for you. May He bless you largely. This is session 29, going through the Gospel of Luke. And I just want to start out by saying that if you have any feedback or suggestions or opinions about the things I teach on here, I welcome you to contact me and just give me your input. I won't argue with you. Also, of course, I welcome you to join us at New Road Christian Church every Sunday morning as we worship. But also on Friday mornings in Dennis, we have a Bible study. I welcome you to join that, join us with that. But also, if you and maybe a couple friends of yours have a desire for something like that, a Bible study, a few people going through the Bible, asking questions, and the intention is to get built up as people. Friday mornings, we really do that. It's a good time. And so if you have that kind of a desire in your area, I invite you to contact me and perhaps we can get something together. I like doing that kind of thing. So we're going through the Gospel of Luke, and this is verse 32 of chapter 6. Here we go. Jesus said, "If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you?" Pretty easy, right? "Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who are good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do that." Pretty easy to be good to people who are good to us, right? "And if you lend to those from whom you expect repayment, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners, expecting to be repaid in full. But love your enemies. Do good to them. And lend to them without expecting to get anything back. Then your reward will be great, and you will be sons or daughters of the Most High, because He is kind to the ungrateful and wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful." There are some things, there are so many things about God, about life, about Jesus, that we do not understand. I read a gathering of information from Google Trends. It was from May 2016 to May 2017, and they collect the questions that people ask over that time period. And from 2016 to 17, these are some of the questions that people asked Google. Here we go. What happens when people die? How do we live forever? Is there life after death? Why do we have to die? What is beauty? What is love? These are questions from Google Trends from over a year time period. What is truth? What is my life purpose? There are so many things we do not understand, right? There's a great author, Lee Strobel. He wrote a lot of books. I think his first one was, maybe the second one, The Case for Faith. Excellent book. And in that book, he talks about the Big Eight. That is, the big 8 questions of life. And here are those 8 questions according to Lee Strobel. If there's a loving God, why does this pain-racked world groan under so much suffering and evil? Great question. If the miracles of God contradict science, then how can any rational person believe they are true? Questions of life. If God really created the universe, why does the persuasive evidence of science compel so many to conclude that the unguided process of evolution accounts for life? Questions of life. If God is morally pure, how could he sanction the slaughter of innocent children as the Old Testament says he did? If Jesus is the only way to heaven, then what about the millions of people who have never heard of him? Questions about life, questions about God. Here's number 6, according to Lee Strobel. If God cares about the people he created, how can he consign so many of them to an eternity of torture and hell just because they didn't believe the right things about him? If God is the ultimate overseer of the church, why has it been rife with hypocrisy and brutality through the ages? And one more. Question of life, question about God. If I'm still plagued by doubts, then is it still possible to be a Christian? Some things, some questions are difficult to answer. Some things about God and life are difficult to understand. We don't understand some things. When you read the Bible is a dramatically realistic book and historical account. And it not only lists the great faith-filled things that people do, but it's history. So it also mentions the not good things people do, and it also mentions that the questions that people had throughout history and throughout life. These are questions that people in the Bible had regarding life and God. See if you can relate to any of them. Here's one question that we read in the Bible. Why has God led me here? Did you ever say that? Here's another question from the Bible. Why do you bring this trouble upon us? That's what somebody said to God. Ever said it? Here's another one. Why has the Lord done such a thing? Have you ever said that? Why do you hide your face? And here's one more question from the Bible. People ask throughout the Bible, why has this happened to me? I'll bet sometime you have asked that question. Why has this happened to me? What are your questions regarding life and regarding God. So let me move on to part 2 of this message. Part 1 was there are some things about life and about God that are difficult to understand and that we just don't understand. Here's the second part. There are some things about life and about God that we do understand and that we can understand, and particularly that Jesus said in what I read in the beginning from Luke chapter 6. These things are easy to understand. There's no symbolism, there's no analogies, there's no parables. It's just straight talk. Jesus to us. And here's the first thing that is very clear and very easy to understand. Words from Jesus from Luke chapter 6. He said, God is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. God is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. And here's the thing about that statement. You will either love that statement or you will hate that statement. You will love it if you know that you are, or at least have been, at some point, ungrateful and wicked. You will love the fact that God is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked if you admit that you are sometimes ungrateful and wicked. But you will hate, I believe, the words of Jesus if you think you deserve better than other people. God is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. If you think you are better than so many other people, that may really miff you that God is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. There's a situation Jesus was talking about in Matthew chapter 20, and I'm going to read it right here. It was a parable. And listen to the words of Jesus. For the kingdom of heaven is like a Land Rover. For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire men to work in his vineyard. He agreed to pay them a denarius, or some money. He agreed to pay them some money for the day and sent them into his vineyard. About the third hour he went out and saw others standing in the marketplace doing nothing. He told them, "You also go and work in my vineyard, and I will pay you whatever is right." So they went. He went out again about the 6th hour and the 9th hour and did the same thing. About the 11th hour he went out and found still others standing around. He asked them, "Why have you been standing here all day long doing nothing?" "Because no one has hired us," they answered. He said to them, "You also go and work in my vineyard." When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foremen, "Call the workers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last ones hired and going on to the first." The workers who were hired about the 11th hour came, and each received a denarius, or a sum of money. So when those who came who were hired first, they expected to receive more. But each one of them also received a denarius, the same sum of money. When they received it, they began to grumble against the landowner. "These men who were hired last worked only 1 hour," they said, "and you have made them equal to us who have borne the burden of the work and the heat of the day." But he answered one of them, "Friend, I am not being unfair to you. Didn't you agree to work for a denarius, a certain sum of money? Take your pay and go. I want to give the man who was hired last the same as I gave to you. Don't I have the right to do what I want with my money? Or are you envious because I am generous. Are you envious because I am generous? Instead of rejoicing in God's generosity, these people said, I worked harder than them. And I wonder if you ever feel that way. God is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. God is kind to all those creepy people. What about me? I've been working so hard all this time. There's a word, grace. It's a beautiful word. And the meaning of it is undeserved, unearned kindness and blessing. God is full of grace, unearned, unworked for, undeserved blessing. God is full of grace. How are you with that? There's another place in the New Testament. Listen to what it says. As for you, you were dead in your transgressions and sins, in which you used to live when you followed the ways of this world and of the ruler of the kingdom of the air, the spirit who is now at work in those who are disobedient. All of us also lived among them at one time, gratifying the cravings of our sinful nature and following its desires and thoughts. Being honest, you may be there right now. Like the rest, we were by nature objects of wrath, but because of his great love for us, God, who is rich in mercy, made us alive with Christ even when we were dead in transgressions. It is by grace, undeserved, unearned blessing. It is by grace you have been saved. And going down a little, it says, for it is by grace you have been saved, through faith. And this not from yourselves. It's the gift of God. Not by works, so no one can boast. None of us can boast. None of us can say, I deserve more, Lord. I deserve more than those people. We're all in the same boat. We've all blown it. We all blow it. We are all ungrateful at some points. We are all wicked in various ways at various points. And God is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. And I personally am so very thankful for that. Something else very clear that Jesus said here. He said that God is merciful. That came across very clear. God is merciful. To be merciful literally means to treat someone with kindness and forgiveness, not cruel, not harsh, but compassionate. It means having pity, and pity is a strong feeling of sadness and sympathy for someone. And here's the root of the word mercy, merciful, and it means to condescend. And I knew that for a long time, but I didn't know, what does that mean? I mean, God is condescending? Excuse me. We don't think of condescending in a positive way. But as time went on, and I experienced more of life and I thought more about this, condescending, mercy is a good thing, can be a good thing. Think of it like this. When my son was very young, we were in a store, and we had a long day, and while we were in checkout, he was sitting on a bench on the other side of checkout, and he was just pooped out. And he looked like he was pooped out. He was very young. And this lady was walking by, and we watched it all. This lady was walking by, and she stopped, and she bent down, and she said, "Are you okay?" That's condescending in a good way. Bending down, lowering yourself to someone else. Are you okay? There are people that you will never stop for, that you will never, quite honestly, have mercy for, condescend for. I was just recently in Boston and saw a fair amount of homeless people around, and civilization was just going at full pace, and no one was stopping for these folks. But you know what? God does. God is merciful, says Jesus. And here's the cool thing. God stops for you too. No one may be stopping for you right now, but God is. So, from Luke chapter 6, what I read in the beginning, there is more from Jesus that we do understand regarding life, regarding God. There is more that Jesus said that is very clear and very understandable. And here's what Jesus said that we can clearly understand from Luke 6. Jesus said to us, to you, to me, be like God. You know, the New Testament, it says, he who abides in him ought himself also to walk the same way as Jesus walked. If you say you live in God, be like God. A great author, Brennan Manning, who passed away a few years ago, he wrote a book called The Importance of Being Foolish. And he said, people, to put it bluntly, have had a bellyful of our sermonizing. How can I be kind to the ungrateful and the wicked? Says Brennan Manning. Am I merciful like God? There's a place, again, in the New Testament, and it says, you know, okay, if when you come to Jesus, you believe in him, you trust in him, you say, I'm a Christian, I'm a Christ follower. You know, he died for my sins. I believe that. He rose from the dead. I believe that. He's leading me today. He wants to lead me today. I believe that, and I want to go with him. If you are like that, that's the best thing, best place you can arrive at. But listen, there is more, isn't there? There's more than just believing. And you need to take the things that Jesus said, and just quite frankly, you got to wrestle them out with God. You got to figure it out. And it's like this whole thing, be like God. You just got to figure it out. You got to wrestle it out. You got to pray it out. You got to talk to people and read your Bible and think it through so you can be like God, so you can be the real deal, right? Being like God through life, through daily life, in your house, with your spouse, at work, in the store, when you're frustrated, when you're angry, when you're depressed, when you're lonely. So many things. When you're on edge, when you don't know what to do, be like God. How can you do that? You got to figure it out. A pastor from out west, Jack Hayford, said, God does not give or withhold his kindness dependent upon the character of the recipient. I'll say it again. God does not give or withhold his kindness dependent upon the character of the recipient. So, Jesus' disciples, are you Jesus' disciple? Are you a student of Jesus? Are you a learner from Jesus? So Jesus' disciples must be indifferent in the extension of kindness to friend and enemy alike. I've been in a lot of meetings with people in social services and in human services. You know, that's a difficult thing for all of us, to be unbiased and kind to everyone, to be like God in that way. David Kinnaman, an author, he said, Jesus was called a friend of sinners. And I say, what are you called? Who do you abhor? Who are you repulsed by? Who are you disgusted by? Who do you detest? Who are you turned off by? Well, you can't deny your feelings. But if you call yourself, or you want to be a follower of God, be like God. Let's pray. Pray after me something like this. God, you are merciful and you are kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. And you are kind and you are merciful to me. Help me be the same way to everyone. Amen. So I wonder what you may have gotten out of what you just heard. I hope you were comforted. I hope you were encouraged. I hope you gained some knowledge about God, or at least some curiosity about Him. I hope if you're not part of a church that you check out New Road Christian Church. And I hope most of all that you would turn to Jesus. He can give you the life that you were meant to have, that you were created to have. He can give you the best life possible. I'm going to do a little more of that song that I started before. Thanks for tuning in, and God bless you. And if I was the smartest guy in town, and if I had faith to move a mountain, and if I gave all I had to feed the poor, but don't have love, love is patient, love is kind. Love gets hurt but doesn't mind. Doesn't grab and won't demand or put you down. Help me to love like that, oh Lord. Help me to love like that, oh Lord. Help me to love like that, oh Lord. I can't do it on my own.